Hey YouTube, today we're going to compare two very similar type pistols that a lot of people think are very similar, and they do share very similar traits, but they are also very different. And I've done this comparison before, but I'm going to do it with two older original ones versus two very modern ones, and you can see how technology has come along and these pistols have developed into what they are today. So what we're going to be comparing here is the 1911s here on top to the Sig P220s here on the bottom. All these are chambered in 45 ACP. And the two here on the left are going to be the older quote-unquote antique ones that a lot of people think are outdated, and the two on the right are the super guns. This is what they've developed into with all the technology and everything. So we'll see if these old girls here can hang with these newer ones here. So before we get started, I'm going to let you know that all these pistols have been safety checked, and as I pick them up one by one, I will show you there's nothing in them, and we are safe to make this video. So what we'll do is we're going to start off with these old ones here, and we'll show you kind of what started these platforms. So what we have here, I'll show you that this is not loaded. This is an original Colt 1911. 1911 platform was introduced in 1911 for the United States military, and the military requested that it have a 45 caliber handgun as a sidearm, and they wanted it to be semi-automatic. And John Moses Browning came up with this design. They submitted it to the military, and it fired 6,000 consecutive rounds without one malfunction, and the United States military adopted it. Now, it's been through a couple changes over the years, but not many, folks. It's pretty much the same design as it was in 1911. This is one of the ones that went through the very first change in the 1920s, called the A1. But basically, they're all the same, pretty much design. I'm going to show you some close-ups of this. It says Colt government model right here on the side, and on the other side, it says Colt Mark IV Series 70 government model, 45 automatic caliber. So very cool gun. A 1911 is just a single action only handgun. So what I mean by single action only is when this hammer is cocked back, it will fire. But once it fires, it's done. The only way that it will fire again is at the slide cycle. So the way this thing works is you fire it, and by it firing, it cycles the slide back, and that cocks the hammer. And then you fire it again, and so on and so on. Now, this gun features a few different safety mechanisms on it to keep everything safe, and one of them is this grip safety right here. It has a grip safety on the back, so when you have this hammer cocked like this gun will not go off. You cannot get it to go off until this is depressed. So by your hand grabbing onto this, that's what makes the gun go off. The other safety that it has on the side of it has a thumb safety that rides right up here. When that thumb safety is on, even if this is down, you cannot fire this gun. Or can you move the slide? It keeps the slide from moving too. So the proper way to carry this thing is with this thing cocked and the thumb safety on. You put it in a holster, and it freaks everybody out that doesn't know anything about firearms. They see this hammer back and they get freaked out. And what they don't know is majority of all the guns are cocked when they're in the fire when you're carrying one around. This one just freaks everybody out because you can see the external hammer on it. But the 1911 is a good design, and one of the things about the 1911 is it probably has the best trigger of any handgun that anybody watching this channel will ever feel. So the trigger on this thing is absolutely exceptional. If you look at this, there's that much take up, and then it just goes off, and the reset on this thing is right here and done. And you got to keep in mind, folks, this is just a plain Jane, nothing souped up about it. Single side, thumb safety, no kind of crazy serrations on it, no texturing or anything on it, no undercuts. This is as plain as it gets. This is about as American as things come. This is American as baseball or American pie. Colt 45. So what we'll do, we'll sit this one down and we'll look at an original Sig Sauer pistol. And I'll show you that this one isn't loaded either. And this is a Sig Sauer P220. Now these came out in 1975 by Sig Sauer, and they were made over in Germany. And this one actually says made in Germany, but all the Sig Sauer people will tell you that this one was probably assembled in the United States just with German parts. It's not quite as old as the original German made ones, but it's pretty old. If it had been made actually in Germany, assembled in Germany, it would have little proof marks underneath it. But this is also a single stack 45 ACP pistol, and it holds the same amount of rounds. Before we go any further, I'm going to show you the magazines that these hold. This one on the left is a 1911 single stack magazine, and the one on the right is a Sig 220 magazine. They look almost identical, folks. They're 8-round single stack magazines, but the bad thing is they do not interchange. So if you'll look here at the little magazine catch stuff and all that, it's different, so they will not interchange. So we'll set those aside and pick the Sig back up. Now the Sig Sauer, the difference in this one is this is what they call double action and single action. So basically you can cock this hammer and you can fire it, and you can keep firing it. It'll do double action also. So if you'll notice on the outside of this gun, there is no external safeties. You don't have any kind of grip safety, and you don't have a thumb safety anywhere on it. So the way this works is you would put a loaded magazine in it, you would cock it, and that has the hammer back. Well, that would be dangerous if you carried that around like this, because there's no kind of safety here and there's no thumb safety, so this thing could literally go off at any time this trigger is pressed. So the way you get around that is the second lever right here. This is your slide release, and this is what they call a decocker. So you pull down on this and it decocks this hammer. It does not make contact with the firing pin, and that's how you would carry this gun. It would be in the holster, decocked, without resting up against the firing pin. So when you draw out, your first shot is going to be double action, and then from then forward, you're going to be firing single action. So the trigger pull will be a lot lighter. Now, on this trigger here, I'm going to show you some close-ups of it. That's your double action pull. It's smooth all the way through, and your single action pull is of course going to be a lot shorter. There's a little bit of shake up on this one right here, but it's a pretty crisp trigger on this, and your reset on it is going to be right here. A little bit of shake up, and then it fires. Very good trigger on this. Now the original 6 hours like this one's an alloy frame, and it's got a steel slide, and this one has one of the older folded slides, so it doesn't have any kind of external extractor on it, and the block on the inside is a separate piece, and that's a whole 6 hour history thing, and I have a video on all that, on the differences in them. And this front part here was welded on after the slide was completed. Very cool gun though. This is a pretty old Sig 220. This is one of the original ones. It's a nickel slide. It's got all the nickel controls and everything, so it's kind of cool because it's two-tone. Show you some of the close-ups of it. It says Sig Sauer on this side. On the other side, it says P220 made in Germany, and on the barrel it says 45 auto. On the grips, they're rubberized grips, or like rubber grips. It says Sig Sauer on one side, and on the other side it says P220. Pretty plain Jane. There's no kind of rails or any kind of texturing or anything like that. So a lot of the modern people, they probably wouldn't like this one very much. So now we're going to move into today's time, and we're going to look at a more modern gun. So we'll start with this 1911 here. And this is about as souped up as it gets. It's a Wilson Combat Professional. This is called the Elite Tactical, and this one has all the bells and whistles on it. So this one has the fluted chamber on it, the fluted barrel, and it has all these carry cuts put in it. It's been flush cut on the end and crowned. It's got countersunk parts on it, like this slide stop. It does have texturing on the front. It has texturing on the rear. It has checkering on the back of the slide. It has serrations on the top. The ejector port's been lowered down. and it has ambidextrous safeties on both sides, as you can see, so lefties can use it. It's got extended memory hump on the grip safety and extended beaver tail, and then this thing's about as souped as it can get. It's got a mag well on it for speed shooting and stuff like competitions, but the biggest difference is it's got a short and slide on it. So it's a full-size frame, short and slide, and back in the day when these things came out, nobody could figure out how to get these things to run because they were designed to have a 5-inch barrel on them, and the timing would always get off and companies would try. Well, companies like this is a Wilson Combat, they figured out how to make these things run, and I'm talking about an exceptional trigger. If you look at this trigger here, this is going to have the best trigger on the table. There's your take up, and there it is. And the reset on this thing is right there, and then it goes off. And it's probably a 2.5 to 3 pound trigger on this thing. I haven't measured it, but it's got exceptional sights on it. It's got U-notch battle sights, and it's got a fiber optic green up front. Exceptional gun, but this is what technology has brought along. So if you look at these two side by side, at first they appear to be about the same platform, but when you look at all the stuff that's done to the one on the top, it's not even close, folks, all the stuff that's done to it. It's just this technology has come along and they figured out ways to improve things and make it more shootable. Now, the next one we're going to look at is a Sig 220, and this one's kind of a unique one also. This is a 220 Elite, and this is the carry model. Now, the first thing you notice about this is compared to the other Sig is it also has a short and slide. There's a lot of differences in this and the original Sig that I just showed you, and I'm going to go through them real quick. This one's also got texturing on the front for your grip. It's got texturing on the front of the trigger guard. It has a short and slide on it. This has a one-piece slide on it. It's a milled stainless steel slide, so the breech block is not pinned in like it is on the other one. It's all one piece. It does have an external extractor on it. It's got a little bit of extended beaver tail on it, and this whole frame is made out of stainless steel. So instead of being alloy, this one's made out of stainless steel, so it is quite a bit beefier and heavier. Now, one of the other differences is, well, before we go into that, this one's also double action, single action. So it will fire on single action. It will also fire on double action. Now, here's the big difference that Sig made to improve over this one right here. So when you pull this hammer back and you fire this thing, you have this much take up, and this trigger is greatly improved over the older one. And when you go to do the reset on this, if you look close, it's right there. And there is no take up after that, and that's your reset pull. This has got what they call the short reset trigger in this Elite carry here. And they stopped making these a few years ago, and this was probably the best one that they made altogether with this short and slide and stainless frame and the short reset trigger in it. So if you look at them side by side, at first glance they look very similar, but they are very different in the end. This one's also got a Picatinny rail to attach all your little cool lasers and stuff on it. It's got front slide serrations on it for all the people that like to walk up to it and press check to make sure there's no ammo in their gun. It's got night sights on them, so it's got a little bit of improved sights on it, but much more modern gun than the original 220 that came out in the 70s. Now, folks, which one is better? Most of the stuff that's on these modern guns, people don't even use. Now, you can make the argument like on the 1911, this is greatly improved by having AMI safeties on it, because pretty much before they put AMI safeties on in 1911, this thing was not usable for a left-handed person unless you really trained with it. You'd have to figure out how to flip your thumb around and work the safety, and the safety is a must on a 1911 platform. Other than that, which one is better? All four of these guns shoot incredible, folks. All of them. Handguns are only as good as the person using them. You get a good tool, and all these are good tools, but you have to have an operator to go behind the trigger, and the person behind the trigger is what does all the work. Now, are these newer ones got a little bit more improvements on them? Yes, they do. The texturing on the front of these things, like on these two stainless steel ones here on the right, that really helps with the 45 recoil. Some of the stuff like the serrations being better and the stainless steel frame and the ambi safeties and stuff, yes, time has improved that. But what people don't understand, and especially the younger generation, is these two old girls over here were around a very long time and they served their purpose. This 1911 here on top, this thing served in the military from 1911 until 1989. And believe it or not, folks, it's still being carried by some of the military. But this thing was around for, like 70 years, 80 years. It was the sidearm of the United States military, so it cannot be all that bad. And they didn't have, all those years, they didn't have all that crazy texturing and light rails and stuff like that. This is what they carried it in this form right here. This is regular 1911. Now the 220, this is what got all the SIG stuff started. All the modern SIGs that you see today was this gun. This was the first one that came out, and it didn't have all the crazy rails on it and crazy stuff, front serrations and all that. And believe it or not, this thing has a two-piece slide on it. So this breech block is actually separate from the regular slide. And a lot of people think these are better than the newer ones. I'm on the fence about that. I think they both have an advantage. Now this one is quite a bit lighter than the newer stainless one here. They still make the alloy frame ones, so that's not really a more modern thing, but they never made them in stainless, and this gun is quite a bit heavier, but it's also quite a bit smaller if you look at them side by side. Same with the 1911. These weigh about the same because they're both solid steel, but the original one is quite a bit longer, a 5-inch versus a 4-inch barrel. But so, do I think the newer ones are light years ahead of the older ones? I think there is a lot of technology that went into them, but I do like them both. I do appreciate these old guns as much as I appreciate all the improvements and all the new gadgets that you put on the newer guns. So it'd be completely up to you. If you got it just for shooting purposes only, you're not going to tell much difference in any of these four right here. And as far as cost-wise, a lot of people like to talk about value, and I'm not a big value person, but these two on the right are pretty expensive because they're modern guns. The one on the top is just a custom-made gun. This one here was expensive when they made them. They quit making them. They discontinued them. So if you get your hands on one of those, you're going to pay a lot for these. But the two on the left here are more quote-unquote collectible. So the collector value has gone through the roof on them, and people charge an arm and a leg for like an old Colt 1911 that's original, or an old German-made 220 here. So cost-wise, you're going to be about the same. It's just what you're into is what you should buy. Now, if you're just going to be a straight take it to the range and wear it out kind of person, which I like those kind of people a lot, you might want to consider these two on the right. They're more shooter friendly. They have more of the new gadgets that make them more shootable, and you're just that's what they're built to do. If you're one of these people that like to lock them up in the safe and tell all your friends about you have this collectible guns, maybe you can go with these on the right. But you can still shoot these, and I shoot these. I shoot everything that I have, folks. But anyway, folks, I wanted to show you a side-by-side of two quote-unquote antique SIG and Colt 1911 versus two very modern 1911 versus SIG guns. This one's on a Colt. This is a Wilson Combat. The two bottom ones here are SIGs. But anyway, folks, let me know what you think about these comparisons, and thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.